Hey y'all, how are you doing? I hope you are having an amazing day and you are reaping all that God has for you. I wanted to hop on here and talk to you a little bit about some of the challenges that we have in blended families. And sometimes it's just in overall relationships. When you're dealing with a high conflict person or co parent, and sometimes it's not even about them being high conflict, but just maybe they're angry. So they are moving with you differently or not in a healthy way that makes the relationship and the co-parenting the best that it could possibly be. That is a huge thing that many blended families experience because the healing hasn't taken place. We often believe that our healing is the same time as other people or the co-parent or even our own children. And the reality is we all heal at different times, right? So healing may look differently, or the process may look differently, or it may take longer than what we would have expected or wanted. I will tell you that when you are dealing with a co-parent and you have that dynamic, it makes it very difficult to navigate parenting with your children. And in the end, it's obviously the children that end up having to pay the price for that unhealed parent. One of the things that I encourage people to consider is when they're dealing with someone who is angry or what we would identify as being high conflict, is to take a moment and try to consider what they may be going through, what they may be feeling. And sometimes that will help us to be able to respond to them differently and not in a place of anger when we understand why someone is behaving the way that they are behaving. It doesn't mean that you're excusing it. It doesn't mean that you're giving them a pass. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't be held accountable. But it gives you a different level of compassion, empathy, sympathy, and understanding. Okay, they're responding to me like this because they're still hurting. What can I do on my end to help them in this healing process while remembering what the ultimate goal is, right? Which is to raise healthy, thriving children. And we can only do that when we're modeling that behavior. So we have to show our children in our co-parenting that we're able to function together in a healthy way. So if it's something that is impeding that, if there's something that is preventing that from happening, then we have to work so that we can resolve that. So whether it is to sit down and have a conversation, whether it's to have a therapy session, a life coaching session, whatever it is that needs to take place so that you can remove the obstacles that's preventing you from being able to parent at your best God-given ability, so that you can raise children that grow up and can say, you know what, my parents may not have lived in the same home together, but they had a very successful, strong relationship in that they raised me together. They raised me together and they did what was in my best interest. They didn't allow their emotions, their feelings to get in the way. They came together to make sure that I had the best life that I could possibly have. We don't realize the stress that it puts on our children when we don't get along. If you were in an intact family and your children lived in the same home as you know, 24/7, you would still have that dynamic. Children want to see that their parents are getting along, that they're communicating. And when they don't see that, they do things that will cause even additional confusion. So they'll start to manipulate, they'll start to say things to one parent that they're not saying to the other. They will come to one parent and talk about the other parent and do a back and forth thing. It's hard for them. You know, it's already difficult enough for children in a blended family when they have to go from home to home, from week to week, month to month, or whatever the schedule is, right? And oftentimes the homes are not modeled the same. So in one home, they may be doing one thing, they go to another home and they're doing something very different. And in that case, your child is constantly having to flip flop from home to home. So why wouldn't we work to try to make it as smooth as possible, knowing that they already have that dynamic, right? We want to try to peel back the layers of things that are unnecessary for them to have to go through. And not having parents that are on the same page is something that they should not have to experience. They should be able to know that they know both of my parents are in the corner for me and they're both on one accord. And they don't have that opportunity to manipulate because they already know that their parents are operating together for the purpose of raising them according to God's perfect will. The Bible says that we're supposed to train up our children in the way that they should go so that when they are old, they won't depart from it. And the only way we can do that is if we're modeling it. We have to be that example for our children. Remember, we are the first examples that they have and what relationships look like. And if we can't do it, then how do we expect them to be able to do it? How do we expect them to be able to get along with their siblings, to go to school and be able to get along with their peers, to be able to be respectful to their teachers or others that are in authority to them? It happens when we model those types of behavior. And so you ask, how do I do that? How do I do that when I'm angry or my co-parent is angry? How do I maneuver and co-parent with them in a healthy way when every time I try to talk to them, they're high conflict. They're either, yelling or bringing up the past or saying something negative about me or my spouse or my mate, or they are or they're ignoring me. And let me tell you, ignoring and stonewalling is the same type as it is when you are yelling, full blown cursing someone out. It's still very toxic because it doesn't allow you to communicate efficiently and effectively and doing what's in the best interest of the child. Now, I'm not talking about when you are ignoring because someone is being toxic toward you. I'm not talking about when you've made your stance and you said, look, when you're able to talk to me respectfully, we can have a conversation, and then you're getting bombarded with emails or phone calls and you're avoiding answering those. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is when you are out in public and you see your co-parent at a school function or one of your children's activities, and they speak and you look them straight in the face and you don't say a word. That's toxic. Your child sees that. And it's not healthy. Like it's not healthy. Why would it hurt anyone to just say hello? Like it's a nice gesture. We speak to strangers when we're at work. We speak to the people at work, even when we may not necessarily, like their work ethic or even like their personality. We're professional and we'll speak to people at work. We'll speak to strangers out in public, but then we can't speak to the person that we are raising a child together. That's toxic to do that, and it's not healthy. When you are when your co-parent is trying to communicate with you or ask you a question, whether it be by email, text, or they're calling you and you're ignoring the call to avoid answering the question, that's toxic, and it's not healthy. Anytime you avoid communicating with your co-parent for the purposes of reaching a goal of doing what's in the best interest of your child or making a decision on behalf of your child, it's not healthy. So how do we navigate through that? How do we work through that when we are dealing with unresolved pain, hurt, anger, frustration? How do we communicate when we're feeling those things? We have to be willing to stop thinking of self and think of the child. And I know that's hard. I'm going to say it again. We have to stop thinking of self and think of our child, because it's not just about us. It's not just about our own hurt and our own pain and our unresolved issues from the past. It's about, what can I do to help my child have the best possible life that they can? I already know that it's a lot on them going back and forth between two homes. I already know it's a lot on them by not having both parents in the home. So what can I do to make this better? And if you're dealing with a situation where you are angry, or the ex or the co-parent is angry, and you're not able to work toward communicating effectively, then perhaps bringing in a mediator or bringing in someone who can help you navigate that. You have to be willing to change your perspective. You have to be willing to say, you know what? Yes, the relationship didn't work out. We aren't together as the family that maybe I had envisioned. But we are still a family. We're still a family. We are still going to be able to raise this child together. We're going to be able to come together, make decisions for this child. We'll be able to have conversations about what we think is best for the child. And it's not about the past. It's not about what didn't happen. It's about what can happen and what we can do together effectively in trying to allow this child to have the best possible life that they can. When we shift our thought process about it, our behavior will start to shift. So, you see your ex out, and you see the child with the ex, and in your mind, you might start thinking, man, I can't stand him or her. I'm so angry. This is, or you may be even embarrassed. Who knows what negative thoughts may be running through your head. But remember, those thoughts are coming because they're trying to keep you from doing what the right thing is to do, which is to step outside of self and say, you know what, let me do the right thing and help raise this child according to the way I know and my ex knows he needs or she needs to be raised. What can we do? Because together we are going to be a force that can't be reckoned with. Why would I want to add additional stress and pain on my child? And sometimes, we might think it's not adding additional stress. We may look around and say, oh, well, there's a lot of people out here that are like that and they are completely fine. Outwardly, they may be fine, but we don't know what they're dealing with inwardly. And sometimes as parents, we don't know what our children are dealing with until it's too late or until they become adults. And at that point, we can't go back and fix what we've already damaged. Now we're in a process of trying to help them heal what we helped create, and a way to avoid that is saying, you know what? Yes, I don't like how the relationship ended. I don't like how it happened, but I know that together we can be the parents that we need to be. I know that I can do what I need to do in order to make sure that I'm parenting according to the way God would have me to parent. And as the shift happens in our perspective, we'll start to have sympathy, empathy, compassion, understanding, and we'll want to work together because we'll recognize that working together is really what's best for our child, and it eliminates some of those extra stressors that they don't need. Our children are already dealing with being in school, peer pressure, all the different things that comes along with adolescents, young adults, all of that. As a parent, as a responsible parent, we want to do whatever we can to try to eliminate whatever we can, because once they graduate and once they're off to college or, adults, they're going to have their own level of stressors. And we don't want one of them to be related to how they were raised or that their parents don't get along. Because remember, if we're not making it work now while they're kids, while they're young and they're minors, imagine what we're going to do to them when they become adults. When they become adults and they have their own family, they're still going to be dealing with the drama of their parents not getting along and not communicating. That is stressful. As parents, as loving parents, we have to be willing to do our due diligence and say, you know what, I'm going to push, those past feelings that I have aside, in the sense of I am going to do what I need to do in order to parent effectively. And that means communicating with the co-parent, operating with the co-parent in decency and order so that my children can have the best possible life that they can have. And again, like I said, when I say pushing aside, I don't mean not resolving it. I mean seeing a therapist, talking to your pastor, talking to someone, a mediator that can help you work through some of those things that you may be dealing with that may be preventing you from healing, because you are important too. Now, don't misunderstand me. You are important as well. And knowing that your children are healthy, that's part of you. That's part of you. And that's part of the work that you're doing on yourself and for them so that they can break generational curses and cycles and make better decisions than we've made, right? So our healing is important. So when I say push it aside, what I mean is shelf it for a moment when you are in the moment of dealing with your co-parent. If you feel like something is rearing its ugly head in the middle of you communicating, that's preventing you from communicating effectively, Take some deep breaths. Start to shift your focus and think about what the whole purpose is in this. This is for doing what is in the best interest of the child. This is not about me and my feelings right now. This is about doing what I need to do. I can go talk to a therapist in a minute. I can talk to a mediator. I can journal. But right now, I need to do what is in the best interest of my child. That is what I'm saying when I say, put your feelings aside. Because again, I am not a promoter for ignoring feelings. I'm not a promoter for saying your feelings don't matter, because they do. You matter. The whole family matters, right? And because we know that, we have to operate in a way that produces a healthy, happy, productive family, a family that is strong, a family that has a firm foundation, a family that operates in a place of unity, compassion, understanding, empathy, sympathy. And we can only do that when we're willing to communicate efficiently and effectively, when we're able to respect boundaries and respect each other, when we're able to operate in a place of love. But that happens when we are willing to do our own work, when we're able to shift our perspective and we're able to change what the storyline is. Like we can change the storyline. So even if in the past things haven't been the best, how we've communicated hasn't been the best, we can shift that, right? It doesn't have to be the way it was in the past. We can shift that. And shifting happens when we make a decision to do something different. So I want to encourage you today and challenge you to do something different. Change your mindset. Let's be more compassionate, empathetic, sympathetic, and understanding in our blended family. And let's do our own work to have a successful blended family, raising children that are thriving, raising children in a healthy environment so that they can be all that they were called to be, and they can break cycles and generational curses. They can kick down walls and build bridges for their own families. I want to challenge you today and encourage you and remind you to enjoy the ride.